Are the Steelers destined to be 8-8-1 this year?
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a record quite like that.
Now that we've gotten to 17 games, it's definitely not every day that you see a team with a 500 record. But I think that the Steelers are a classic case of a team that's just kind of right there in the middle.
Yeah,
So we're back here for another preview of the AFC North. This time looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
yeah. The Steelers, I think they've always had a interesting history. They've always been around the 500 mark. They've won 6 Lombardi trophies. They've been good historically, but in the Mike Tomlin era, they always seem to squeak in the playoffs barely. The 10-7, 9-8 records. It felt a little weird. It's like they get to the playoffs most of the years, but they don't get a high draft pick and they always get bounced immediately, right when the playoffs start.
Yeah, they it's a team that historically is successful, but if you're a little bit newer to the NFL, like you may not have seen the success they had in previous years.
Yeah.
Like their last Super Bowl championship was 2008. So that is almost 20 years ago.
Wow. Making me feel old, and I'm not even old.
So I remember that one, and I
Yeah.
remember 2005, I believe it was. I remember them playing the Cowboys back, I believe, Super Bowl 30. So
Wow.
I remember several times the Steelers have made it to the Super Bowl and even won. But you're right. When it comes to more recent additions of the team, they haven't always been the most dominant. They with the retirement of Roethlisberger and Jerome Bettis and a lot of the forces like Palomalu they had on
Yeah.
defense, like they haven't quite been at that level
They've
in
had,
recent years.
I want to say, an underrated defense, but the defense is right now it's kind of falling off. You see, Cameron Hayward, he is not getting any younger, and neither is T.J. Watt. I would say they're still very good, but I don't think they're to the same level they used to be. Like, there's so many guys. This is a
Yeah.
young man's game, like I've said before, and these other guys are just, they're getting up there
So yeah, it's very true. So let's look at the team and kind of take the approach we have
with everybody.
uh, with everyone so far. So let's start with the coach. So Tomlin is out,
Yeah,
and Mike McCarthy comes in. How familiar are you with McCarthy and what he's done?
I am not I don't know very much about him, but I do know that he used to be with Rodgers.
Hmm.
I doubt we'll see a connection quite as great as they used to have for that Super Bowl run, I believe. But I don't think they're gonna be that bad.
Yeah, so McCarthy and Rodgers had a lot of success with the Packers.
Yeah,
That was when Rodgers was at his best. McCarthy was the coach on the sideline. And then after that, he spent a few years in Dallas.
yeah,
And several of those teams had very good records too. I think there were 2 or 3 years where the Cowboys were 12 and 5 with McCarthy there, but I guess they couldn't quite get over the hump. And so he's a guy that kind of like Tomlin, makes the teams competitive, brings them into the playoffs, but doesn't always get much further than that.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm excited to see what him and Rodgers can bring back, kind of this nostalgia for the older fans who were around when he and Rodgers were a pair, and I'm not gonna say that they're gonna be bad. And yeah, I am excited to see what these two can do together, and maybe it'll light a spark for Rodgers in his final year. Maybe not, but this is his final year. He wants to go out with a bang. He's going out with an old friend. I don't know if we're gonna see them make the playoffs. They're definitely they're doing something. They're kind of building for the future, but they're keeping their old guys.
yeah, it's an interesting approach, and it's a little bit off script for the Steelers.
Yeah,
If you look at what they've traditionally done the last 30, 40 years, before Tomlin, they hired Bill Cowher, and he was their head coach, and he was one of the youngest head coaches back then. And he was with the team for a long time, and then when he retired, Tomlin stepped in as one of the youngest head coaches, and they stuck with him through thick and thin for a long time.
Yeah.
And so you kind of think, okay, so that's what the Steelers like to do. They like to bring in a young guy that they feel is ready and hold on to him for a long time and just have that stability within the ownership, within the leadership and the front office and all that. But they're going a little off script this time because,
Yeah.
McCarthy is an older guy. He's got almost 20 years head coaching experience. He's not a spring chicken. You don't you're only going to get a few years with him. So the it looks like the idea is let's bring in a coach that's ready to win now. We've got a quarterback that's ready to win now. So it's kind of like that's the mindset, but they don't have all the pieces in place
Yeah.
to follow through with that. But yeah, I think McCarthy is a coach that gives them a chance to win.
Maybe they should have got Mike LaFleur, and the Cardinals should have got McCarthy. Is that what you
uh,
want?
I don't not interested in McCarthy. I think he's a short-term answer, but I don't know
Better than your
um,
recent guys.
how high the ceiling is with him. But let's shift gears there. So we talked about McCarthy, and I think we think he's a positive in the short term. But what about the offense? So if we look at the Steelers, how much do you think Aaron Rodgers has left at this point?
I'll say, watching those playoffs last year, it felt like his soul was taken from him playing that Texans defense. You could see it in his eyes he did not want to play anymore. I don't know how he was brought back, but it looked like he was 1 foot in the grave when he was playing that Texans defense. You could see it in his eyes. He was very disappointed with how he was playing.
He's a very eccentric guy, but he is intelligent, and I
Yeah.
think that as much experience as he has, when he's out there and he can see how his line's getting dominated, he saw he wasn't going to win that game. Like he
Yeah.
knew, and we saw he saw. But yeah, so I think he is a good quarterback. I think he's a quarterback that can kind of create something, even if he doesn't have a lot to work with. I think he's kind of a guy that you're gonna get points with, but you're not gonna run up the score. You're not gonna be putting up, 40 points a game with him at this point.
Yeah. I do think it's going to be interesting to see the Steelers can do. I mean, we've done the Bengals and the Ravens, and I think we both agree they're going to get third place in the North.
Yeah, so we talk about Rodgers. How do you feel about Pittman with Metcalf? Do you think that these wide receivers are gonna be playmakers and threats, or?
I think I haven't seen much of Pittman. I haven't, and I'll be honest, I wasn't big on the Colts last year. I didn't see much of them,
Hmm.
and until Pierce signed that contract, I didn't even know who he was. I keep around the league, but I'm not big on some teams, and Colts included. Pittman fell under the radar for me. I've seen some things from him. I think he'll be an exciting piece. He's got some age. He might be a little fast. It'll be interesting to see what he can bring, but I do know that DK Metcalf, he had an interesting year last year. I was very disappointed with how he played. Obviously, I'm not a Steelers fan, but I did expect him to have a good year, and by my standards that I put him through, I don't think he did. I think he was very disappointed, or just lackluster for that matter. It was just an odd season for him, and I don't think he was as big of a target as I thought he would be. I didn't see him getting many touchdowns, many yards, many deep balls. Not what I thought he would get.
Yeah.
He just didn't seem to be the playmaker he was in Seattle. And, Seattle's moved on. They've gotten better without him, and it
Hmm.
was just kind of interesting to see that Metcalf wasn't as good last year as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Maybe he takes that step up, but at this point, I doubt it.
So yeah, I'll touch on the offense and then we'll keep moving. So Pittman and Metcalf, the two wide receivers, top heavy. After that, there's really not a lot of depth for the Steelers in the wide receiver room. Like Calvin Austin's not there anymore.
Yeah,
A lot of these other guys don't really recognize, but those two are good. Then you look at their tight ends, Freiermuth and Washington. Those guys
yeah.
are good. You look at their top two running backs, Warren and Rico Dowdle. Those two
I,
are pretty decent
I'm
as.
I'm interested in see what those two will do. Because personally, I put Dowdle as the starter, but Warren had a pretty underrated season last year. I think we might see a split like we saw with the
I think
Lions,
so.
but I'm excited to
Because
see
that's
what
what
those two can bring.
Yeah, that's what the Steelers have been doing. They did that with Warren and Najee Harris. And then when Harris left, I thought, okay, Warren's going to get it more. But no, instead, Aaron threw like 70 passes to Gainwell. And so
Yeah,
now Warren, I think, is going to be in a similar situation. I think he's going to be splitting it with Dowdle. So I think I think they're going to have an average offense. They're going to have guys that they can do stuff with, but not necessarily that are just going to win
it
games by
was
themselves.
it was nice last year because you had DK Metcalf, you had Austin, you had Gainwell, you had Warren,
Hmm.
you had Metcalf, Fryermuth, Washington Smith. You had all these guys that you could throw to, give them a ball, they could work it out. But losing Janu Smith, losing Gainwell, losing Austin, it's gonna be interesting to see what Rodgers can do with this
Yeah,
team that took. I'm not a big fan of Janu Smith, but I did think that he was a good addition. Like they could have kept longer. I respect the tight end room, but I don't know if I could put Fryermuth and Washington to that level that I believe Smith is on.
fair enough. So I think that's enough for the offense.
Yeah,
Let's talk for a minute about the defense before we wrap it up here. So when you look at the Steelers defense, how do you feel? Where does this defense fall for you?
I'd say the secondary a bit with the fall off because Jalen Ramsey obviously was one of the best corners in the league. Then he just got older, and now he's what, a safety. I don't think he's that good anymore. It's just a little disappointing. I'm not the biggest Jalen Ramsey guy, but you don't like seeing legends fall from grace. And they have a few other playmakers, like I said at the start of this. You have Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, and all these other guys that I'm not saying, but I probably should say that I'm missing.
Yeah, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, there's some guys there. And so I think that it's going to continue how it has been, that they've got solid guys that are going to make a solid defense.
Yeah,
And when you look at the offense, solid guys that are going to make a solid offense. And
yeah.
so I think when the Steelers go out there, they're going to beat the bad teams just by being solid in every aspect.
As a Cleveland fan, I might be a little delusional, but I do believe they split with the Browns like they did last year. I I don't think like the Steelers really did anything to improve that much. They got a few guys.
No, I don't think they did either.
They definitely tried to fix some holes, but it's like they're fixing the ones that don't really need that much fixing and just leaving the other gaps open. Like they added Rico Dowdle, and that just
Hmm.
seems like they're doubting Jalen Warren.
Yeah,
I think getting Pittman was a good move. But when I say they'll be third in the AFC North, and I could be completely wrong, it's not that I think they'll be bad, like they'll go like 4 wins or something. I think they'll be around the like 8, 9, 10 win mark. I just think that the Ravens and Bengals are so good that they're gonna outshine them.
yeah, and I agree that they'll be third and maybe fourth. But what I was trying to say
Yeah,
is they're a team that is solid on offense. They're solid on defense. They're gonna beat the bad teams, but on the flip side, when they go up against a good team, they're gonna lose.
yeah,
Like, because they don't have what's gonna separate them and really put them on the next level. So they're kind of going to be like the benchmark. Like if you can beat the Steelers, you're a good team. If you lose to them, then you're not that good. And so I think
yeah,
that's kind of where they're going to be is kind of an indication of where other teams are. I think that they have good players on both sides, offense, defense, but I just don't think it's enough to win the division. I don't think it's enough to make any kind of run in the playoffs, just like we've seen the last few
yeah.
years. Like it just kind of falls short, and I think that's what we're going to see with the team this year. If you saw our hot takes one, I actually said that I think this will be their first losing season in the last 20 23 years. I think it is. I think yeah, I don't think it's going to be a great season for the Steelers.
I do think that ends it. I think we've kind of spoken what we had to say. I mean, personally, we try and keep things professional here. We try not to show any bias, but as a Cleveland fan, I hope they are decent. And I say that holding back my teeth because I do not want to say that. But I'm interested to see what they can bring to the table, and hopefully we can beat them at least once this year.
Yeah, I think that the two teams, I think they can split. And I think when it's a rivalry, that sometimes you can just throw out the records altogether because even bad teams are going to play beyond what their skill might indicate that they're capable of.
Yeah,
If they're gonna be motivated, it's gonna be for a game like that. So, but yeah, I think the Steelers here, and one thing we're seeing too is they're just getting a little bit older
yeah.
in every aspect.
Like Aaron Rodgers, the oldest QB in the league right now. What is he like, 42?
I think so.
Like Philip Rivers came out of retirement. He was only a few years older.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this final season for Rodgers, it'll have some memorable moments and it'll have some mediocre ones, and I think that the Steelers are going to go gently into that good night.
Yeah, I think that ends it.